It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That is something brand new from Operation Mindcrime, and that is called a smear campaign from the forthcoming release called Resurrection, part of the Operation Mindcrime Trilogy, following up last year's The Key. And the guy who's the operation behind the Mindcrime of this masterpiece, once again, is our good friend, vocalist, all-around talented guy, Geoff Tate. Welcome back to the Classic Metal Show, Geoff.
Nice to be back. How are you?
Excellent. Well, Geoff, I'm always amazed at how prolific you have always been with your music and your projects and touring and, putting out new product and, working with such a variety of musicians and the ideas that are brought forth in a musical fashion, and this is no exception to the rule. So here you are. I know you announced on the show about 3 years ago that you had this trilogy in mind, and here you are with the second part getting ready to be released. So here we are into the second part of the trilogy, and so tell us about this second part, Geoff.
Well, I don't know what else I could add other than it's the second act of a 3-act story, and the song you just played, "A Smear Campaign," was really interesting piece of music to work with because it has a lot of different movements to it, a lot of different parts and pieces that was very challenging to kind of bridge, all those different parts and make it into a seamless production, and really had a great time making that record. All 3 records, of course, were written and recorded at the same time, so they've been in the can, so to speak, for a while, and this one's just now coming out, so I'm very excited for people to hear it.
Sure. Now, what is the impetus behind recording the entire thing? I kind of thought that this was kind of like a work in progress, that as time progressed, that maybe current events or things that happen around the world might have influenced maybe some of the direction of the subject material, but it's all finished then, as you put it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Now looking back, since everything is already finished and in the can, do you look back at all and go, you know what? I should have written that a little bit different, or I could have added this, or something happened in world events that may have given you a different viewpoint that you go, that one movement might have been better if had this event taken place and it had, jogged my creative process a little bit different. Has that occurred to you at all, or are you just happy with the way it came out?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's always another song to write, so you can take any current event that happens and write another song about it, So, yeah, I don't typically look back, at the material that I've written. Otherwise, I think anybody that does that would be driving themselves crazy,
Sure.
I mean, can you imagine rewriting Silent Lucidity, Well, I wish I hadn't used that word lucidity. I wish I would have used, Tennessee. How about that?
Right, exactly. Well, Geoff, there's only so many hours in a day, and there's only so much time you can, in a concert setting. Most typically, a lot of concerts last anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours on the average. And being that you have a trilogy here, I'm sure people have maybe brought up the idea. Can you perform this in its entirety? Is that something you intend on doing, or is that just out of the question? Because that is a lot of music.
It is a lot of music, yeah. I'd love to do that. I'd love to play the whole thing in its entirety. But probably not till, 2018, 19, somewhere around there.
Sure.
When the whole thing's finished.
Yeah.
And maybe in sort of a limited sort of engagement, a short little tour of a select number of cities, something like that, something kind of special. Maybe even record it, videotape it or film it, for archival use, or maybe to sell. I don't know. But I definitely would like to perform the whole thing all as one piece.
Right. Well, you obviously have worked with quite a few musicians along the way in this Operation Mindcrime project. How do you define Operation Mindcrime? I know you've said in the past that it's not really a band; it's more of a project. How do you define Operation Mindcrime as an entity?
Well, I try to stay away from that. I try to stay away from definitions if at all possible.
Sure.
Yeah, it is a. I guess I would stand by my initial definition of it, which is it's a project, of like-minded people coming together to create.
Okay. Well, when you create with these various players that you've had on the the roster, be it a David Ellison or Randy Gain, or even a Brian Tichy who's a veteran journeyman musician himself, and of course you've had some guest vocalists with a good friend of mine, Tim Owens, and Blaze Bailey, and the list goes on and on. How do you go about selecting these individual musicians? Did it come to your mind, said, this part would fit really well if, Rip or Owens played this, or is it just what, I'm just going to ask him to be a part of this because he's a friend or an acquaintance?
A little bit of both. Yeah. There's a little bit of, hey, Tim's in town. Hey, you want to come by my house and play around with a song I've been working on? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Sure.
There's a little bit of that. There's also, picking somebody specifically for their, specific way of doing something, And there's also the happy accidents, where people, you put them in a room and you say, hey, this scene that I'm trying to create here is one of complete and utter chaos. What can we do to create that kind of feel? And then that starts that person off on a musical brainstorm that you hit record, and next thing you know, you've got the last half of the 50-second measure of a smear campaign.
Sure, absolutely,
something like that.
Right. Well, when you get a guy, obviously like a David Ellison who's worked, pretty much his entire career with Megadeth, or you get John Moyer, who's been known for a more modern band like Disturbed. What do each one of them bring to the table where their bass playing is concerned? How does one differentiate from the other? Can you tell a difference between the two, that one guy can bring this element and the other guy can bring this element, even though they're basically playing the same instrument?
Oh yeah, you can really tell. You can tell different players playing different things. With bass, it's a little harder because of the type of instrument is, But I've played a lot with John, and he's toured with me, so I'm very familiar with his way of playing and his note choices, his feel that he has. I haven't played at all with Dave. We just recorded together, but we've never played live. So I'm not really familiar with his kind of playing, although he's a monster player, I know, and he can play circles around most people, But yeah, you can tell the nuances of different players by the way they play. And I'll say something's pretty interesting. Maybe a lot of people don't know this, but you can put 4 guitar players in a room and hand the same guitar to each of them, and you're going to get 4 different interpretations. You're going to get a totally different feel out of each one, because it's not the instrument. It's the way they play the instrument that makes it so special and unique.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't have the guitar heroes like a Yngwie Malmsteen or a Eddie Van Halen or a George Lynch that, you can almost pick them out. If you didn't know who was playing it, you could almost identify their playing just by their sound.
Oh, yeah. Somebody like a David Gilmour and Eric Clapton on the other end of the spectrum, people that play more melodically, the same kind of thing applies to them too.
Sure, absolutely. Now, how would you describe this trilogy, Geoff, as far as a style of music? People, and I know you don't like labels, but how would you describe Operation Mindcrime in this trilogy? People use the term, progressive or I don't know, earth music or whatever it is. How would you describe it?
I would probably ask you how you would describe it.
Well, it definitely has a very modern feel to it. I mean, it definitely is not a what you want to call an old standby throwback familiar sound. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
and it's got elements. It's got elements of some of the more classic rock, classic metal sound, I guess, but it also is elevated with more of a modern, almost a futuristic twist to it, if that makes any sense.
Well, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking in more base terms, as I'd probably describe it as a total mindfuck.
Okay. Very good. Excellent. Well, when you obviously, you were part of Queensryche for many, many years, and, you're known as the voice of Queensryche, and, you still tour, do live performances. And when people come see you, they expect you to play certain, key music from the Queensryche, catalog, which obviously you do. But, when a Geoff Tate, what is your vision for your future as far as being a performance artist? Do you see yourself maybe getting away from the Queensryche catalog and maybe concentrating more on your solo work, and maybe once in a while throw in a Queensryche classic? Or do you anticipate Queensryche music being a staple in your live set from here on out?
Well, I don't really think of it like that, Neely. I don't really differentiate myself from Queensryche. It's my music. When you write something, it's yours, and you want to keep performing it all your life, I suppose.
Sure.
So, yeah, I guess I would just always do the songs I wrote, and I will play those for the rest of my life. I think it mixed in, of course, with whatever I'm doing at the moment as well.
Right.
To a certain extent, I think that audiences, they need time to live with music. What makes music classic is time gone by, and so when you have a new album out, people are really unfamiliar with it. It takes them a year or so of playing the album and having it affect them, having life go by with that album, for them to familiarize themselves with it. And so I don't necessarily think that too many audiences are able to digest an entire new record all at once live. So I tend to play a couple songs from the new record, and then play the majority of my set is from past albums.
Sure.
And then next year I come through, I'll play a little bit more from the last album I released,
Right,
they're more
absolutely.
familiar with it at that time.
Right, absolutely. Well, speaking of making albums, Geoff, I know this is a whole different day and age in recorded music, and we speak to many artists, where they're they come from the old school when making a record meant something, on a commercial level. And there just doesn't seem to be obviously there isn't quite the commercial payback anymore with making a record. And I often ask the question, aside from self-satisfaction in laying down a new song or putting together a collection of songs, is there any value in recording anymore aside from, posterity reasons?
And is there any more value?
Yeah, because obviously bands, well, not on a personal level, but just on a commercial level.
Oh, yeah, I don't know really about that. My records are are paid for, up front. So I get paid for them. The company that buys them, they have to recoup that money back,
Sure.
by their ability to sell them, I suppose. I love making new music, and I'll always write new material and perform it. That's what I love most in life.
Right. Well, like I said, I get the whole personal satisfaction of being able to be creative and having a creative outlet and doing that. But when it comes to the actual business of making records, what is your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on the business of making records?
Right. As far as like like we just said about the record sales you came from an era back in the 80s when records sold into the millions. Obviously, Empire is a good example. That sold into the millions, but nobody's doing that anymore per se. So, the commercial aspect of making records is just sort of almost like a lost, a lost effort anymore.
Yeah, I understand your point. Yeah, it is, definitely. I don't think anybody will debate you on that. There isn't the economy to, support record companies anymore, or all the families of the people that worked for record companies,
Sure.
That industry it's completely gutted,
mm-hmm.
from what it was. So, yeah, it's like everything, times change, the world moves on, and you have to adapt to the new and changing world,
Right. Well, go ahead.
I was just saying, it kind of is very similar to people lamenting the loss of their jobs overseas, to different places. Well, that's just the way things work,
right?
And you have to adapt, and you can't keep pining away for the way things used to be. You have to create what's now,
sure,
and be part of the conversation and be part of the changes that need to be made,
right?
And I think a lot of times people just get really hung up on the way things used to be, and they start dreaming and pining away for life the way it used to be, and it's never going to be that way again.
Sure, right. Well, speaking of new and the new way of doing things, what is your thoughts on music outlets such as Spotify? Do you like that, or you don't like that? Some people have a very positive viewpoint of, say, a Spotify musical outlet, and others people say, well, they're the devil.
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with Spotify, so I don't really know. I don't really have a comment.
Okay. And same way with Apple Music.
Yeah, I mean, I buy music on Apple Music.
Sure. Well, they're supposedly getting away from the actual selling of music. I think within the next year, and it's just going to be a listening site where you get paid per the listen.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how that works. Yeah.
Well, what do you see for the future for the release of new music for you, Geoff?
Oh gosh, what you mean, like a plan? Or
yeah,
what?
as far as a service or an outlet, how people can get it.
Oh, probably web. I don't know. Really, I've got a plan. Really, honestly.
Okay.
Not really. I'm actually really not interested in it.
I gotcha. Well, Geoff, I see that you're going to do a CD listening party or release party over in Germany. And how did that come about? I know you're quite the wine connoisseur. I mean, you have branched off to do that, and you're doing this at a winery in Germany. So how did that become, the place you want to do your official release party?
Well, it's where I'm going to be, so it seems like a likely place to do it at.
Okay.
I'm going to be there at that time, and the record comes out when I'm there, and so that kind of makes sense,
Sure.
Yeah. It's a nice place to be that time of year.
I get you. Excellent. All right, Geoff. Well, is there anything else you want to tell the fans about this forthcoming release, Resurrection? Anything I haven't touched on that you would like to point out?
I'm looking forward to touring with it. I think we're starting the U.S. tour in March, so we'll be going to Europe first in December and January, and then South America in February, and then the States in March. We are doing it. Did we talk about the dates with Trinity?
No, not at all.
Oh, yeah, we're doing some dates. Ripper and Blaze and I was kind of a presentation we're calling Trinity, which is the three ex-singers from famous bands getting together, and we're doing a series of concerts actually in the Northeast. Somewhere around November, into November, I think it is. That'll be quite fun.
Sure. Now, I saw you, when was that? It was back in the late 90s where you were part of the package of the Voices. Was it called the Voices of Metal?
Gosh, I don't know what that is.
I thought that it was you and Judas Priest or Rob Halford. He wasn't with Priest at the time. He was a solo. And
is that when
Bruce Dickinson,
we were touring together?
Yeah. Bruce Dickinson, Rob Halford, and yourself.
I don't think that was called the Voices of Metal. I think that was called the Iron Maiden tour. And Queensryche was opening for Iron Maiden, and Rob was opening for us in his solo band.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. But yeah, that was having three of the top vocalists in that music genre all in one place. That was a real treat.
That was a fun tour. We played a lot of golf.
Very nice. Excellent. All right, Geoff. Well, again, it's always a pleasure to have you here on the Classic Metal Show. The second part of this trilogy comes out on September 23rd. Is it?
That's right.
Okay.
September 23rd.
And the name of the new the second part is called Resurrection, so it'll be available. And who's going to be in your touring lineup, Geoff, or has that been decided?
I don't know yet who's going to be on that tour. That's still quite a few months away.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye out on the Operation Mindcrime website for all the information on where you're going to be and all the latest news. So you can go over to OperationMindcrime.com for any information you want to know about the release as well as upcoming tours.
Excellent. Great.
All right, Geoff. Well, again, we appreciate you taking the time. So as a tradition here, Geoff, we always let the artist pick a song from the new release and tell us a story about it. So what should we close out the interview with?
From the new release. Do you have the whole thing?
I will have it by the time this airs.
Oh, okay. Great. How about a song called Invincible?
Okay.
I quite like that one. That one turned out really nicely. I did this record so long ago, I can't remember a lot of the details about it. Well, I really can't tell you too much about it.
Well, we'll let the fans decide. So anyway, Geoff, it's always a pleasure. So go pick up the new Resurrection when it comes out, and this is a tune just called Invincible. So check it out. It's Operation Mindcrime featuring Geoff Tate exclusively here on your Classic Metal Show.